It should be Kelsey Mitchell. Crazy.
When you see Kelsey, who already is one of the best scorers in the world, get to this level, what does that say about her work ethic and the way she's playing?
Yeah, Kelsey comes in here and she works every day. I mean, she gets up extra shots. She just comes in and does what she needs to do. And I think, honestly, she's really just the MVP. Like, I think that's just what she's...
There is a brutal, undeniable reality about the Indiana Fever coaching staff and front office that they desperately try to hide from every single person watching this league. Stephanie White and Aliyah Boston just publicly campaigned for Kelsey Mitchell as the most valuable player, while Caitlin Clark is sitting at number 2 in the ESPN MVP betting odds, leading the entire WNBA in points created per game at 40.2, and single-handedly destroying every television ratings record in league history. For an entire season, Caitlin Clark has been forced to carry this franchise on her back, absorb every brutal foul, endure every jealous veteran's cheap shot, and deliver viewership numbers that literally doubled the league average, all while her own head coach and starting center refused to publicly support her MVP campaign. But that era of silence just got exposed in the most telling way possible. Aliyah Boston went on camera this week and told the media with zero hesitation that Kelsey Mitchell is the real MVP, not Caitlin, Kelsey, and the entire power structure inside that Fever locker room just revealed exactly where their loyalties actually lie. Welcome back. This is WNBA Flash, and today we are ripping the doors off the most calculated betrayal in the WNBA this season. Because what Stephanie White and Aliyah Boston just did to Caitlin Clark on national television is not loyalty to a teammate. It is sabotage of the player who saved their entire organization.
It should be Kelsey Mitchell. Crazy.
When you see Kelsey, who already is one of the best scorers in the world, get to this level, what does that say about her work ethic and the way she's playing?
Yeah, Kelsey comes in here and she works every day. I mean, she gets up extra shots. She just comes in and does what she needs to do. And I think, honestly, she's really just the MVP. Like, I think that's just what she's...
Before I show you exactly what Aliyah Boston said on camera, and trust me, you need to hear this with your own ears, I need you to understand the stakes here. Because this is not just about one comment in one interview. This is about a franchise that has spent the last 6 months benefiting from the Caitlin Clark effect while simultaneously refusing to give her the institutional support that a Ja Wilson gets in Las Vegas, that Breanna Stewart gets in New York, that every other legitimate MVP candidate receives from their own organization. And I have been documenting this pattern for weeks now. The receipts are stacking up, and what you are about to see is the smoking gun that proves everything I have been telling you about the Fever's internal politics. We are going to break down the ESPN ratings data that just dropped. We are going to walk through Caitlin's statistical MVP case, which is absolutely insane when you see the numbers side by side. We are going to play you the exact moment Aliyah Boston chose Kelsey Mitchell over Caitlin Clark. And then I am going to stake 5 predictions about what happens next, because this story is about to explode in a way that the establishment does not see coming. Let's get into it. Here are the numbers that ESPN just released, and I want every single person watching this video to sit with these for a second. For the second consecutive week, ESPN delivered its second most-watched WNBA game ever. Not in the regular season, not in a specific time slot. In the entire recorded history of WNBA broadcasts on ESPN networks, including both regular season and playoff games. The Indiana Fever versus Chicago Sky matchup on ABC averaged 2.6 million viewers. That is a 79% increase compared to last year's ABC regular season average. 79%. Let me say that again so it sinks in. The Caitlin Clark effect produced a 79% year-over-year ratings increase on the same network in the same window with the same broadcast infrastructure. The only variable that changed was Caitlin Clark. And here is the part that the league office does not want you to focus on. Through 22 games this season, WNBA broadcasts on ESPN networks are averaging 1.3 million viewers, up 5% overall. So the league-wide average is 1.3 million. Caitlin Clark just delivered 2.6 million. She doubled it. She did not edge it out. She did not slightly outperform. She doubled the league average in a single game. And this is the second consecutive week she has done it. 2 weeks in a row, ESPN's second most-watched WNBA game ever. Both games featured Caitlin Clark. Both games shattered expectations. Both games proved that this is not a fluke, not a honeymoon phase, not a temporary curiosity spike. This is a structural shift in how many people are willing to tune in to watch this league, but only when Caitlin is on the floor. Have you noticed something? Have you noticed that ESPN is not running around promoting the ratings for every other team in the league? Have you noticed that we do not see press releases celebrating the viewership numbers for Aces games or Liberty games or Lynx games? Why is that? I will tell you exactly why. Because those numbers are not good for public relations. If ESPN published the viewership data for a random Tuesday night Mercury Sparks game, it would expose just how catastrophic the league's baseline audience actually is. The only reason we see these ratings announcements is because Caitlin Clark's numbers are so insane that they function as positive marketing for the league. Every other storyline, the activism, the politics, the side drama, generates social media noise but does not move the needle on actual television viewership. Caitlin Clark has a real basketball fan base. Her fans actually watch basketball games from tip-off to final buzzer. That is why her ratings reflect appointment viewing, not casual scrolling. Now let's talk about the MVP race because this is where the betrayal starts to come into focus. ESPN's current top 3 betting odds for MVP are A'ja Wilson, Caitlin Clark, and Olivia Nelson-Ododa. Caitlin is sitting at number 2, not 5th, not 7th, not some courtesy inclusion to generate clicks. Number 2. And when you look at the statistical case, it is absolutely legitimate. Caitlin Clark is first in the league in points created per game at 40.2. First. That means when you add up the points she scores herself plus the points she directly generates through assists, no player in the WNBA is responsible for more offense than Caitlin Clark. She is first in points per minute. She is first in assists per game. She is third in points per game at nearly 22 per night. And this is before you even factor in her 4 rebounds per game, her defensive activity, her usage rate, or the fact that she is doing all of this as a rookie on a team that was lottery-bound before she arrived. Let me put this in perspective for you. Kelsey Mitchell is averaging 2 more points per game than Caitlin. 2, but Caitlin is averaging 8 more assists per game than Kelsey. 8. So Kelsey scores 2 more buckets per game. But Caitlin is directly responsible for 16 more points per game through her passing. 16 points. That is the difference between a scorer and a franchise engine. That is the difference between a good player and an MVP candidate. And yet, and this is the part that should make every single Fever fan furious, the Indiana Fever organization is not running a Caitlin Clark MVP campaign. Last season, the Fever went all in on Kelsey Mitchell for MVP. They made shirts. The entire team wore Kelsey Mitchell MVP shirts during warm-ups. Stephanie White wore a Kelsey Mitchell MVP shirt in press conferences. They practically put a Kelsey Mitchell MVP logo at center court and erased the Fever logo. It was a full-court organizational press. And you know what? That is what franchises are supposed to do. The Las Vegas Aces are going to run an A'ja Wilson MVP campaign. The Minnesota Lynx are already doing an Olivia Nelson-Ododa MVP campaign. Every contending team rallies around their best player and uses every institutional lever to build their case. So the question that nobody in the media wants to ask out loud is this. Will the Indiana Fever do anything for Caitlin Clark's MVP campaign? Or are they going to sit on their hands and let the moment pass because of internal politics? And here is where it gets absolutely telling. I need you to watch what Aliyah Boston said on camera this week because this is not me paraphrasing. This is not me reading into subtext. This is Aliyah Boston, Caitlin Clark's starting frontcourt partner, explicitly endorsing Kelsey Mitchell as the MVP with zero mention of Caitlin. Don't take my word for it. Listen to what she said herself. Watch this. She said it on camera with reporters recording. After everything we just walked through, the ratings dominance, the statistical case, the fact that Caitlin is literally number 2 in the MVP odds, Aliyah Boston looked into the camera and said, I think honestly she's really just MVP. Like I think that's just what she's been doing. She, Kelsey, not Caitlin. Let me say that back to you in case you missed it. Because this is the most calculated non-answer I have seen all season. Aliyah Boston was asked about Kelsey Mitchell's scoring. That is fine. Kelsey is having a great year. But when you are Caitlin Clark's teammate and you are sitting in front of a microphone and you have the opportunity to build your franchise cornerstone's MVP case, you take it. You say, Kelsey is incredible and honestly we have 2 MVP candidates on this team. You say, Caitlin is doing things we have never seen from a rookie. You say literally anything that acknowledges the player who is responsible for your team being nationally relevant. But Aliyah did not do that. She said Kelsey is MVP. Period. Full stop. No qualifier. And that tells me everything I need to know about where Aliyah Boston's loyalties actually lie. Because here is the pattern that I have been tracking, and I need every single person watching this video to pay close attention. I see Aliyah Boston speaking up for Kelsey Mitchell's MVP case. I see Aliyah speaking out on behalf of Stephanie White when the coaching staff takes heat. But where was Aliyah when Caitlin Clark was getting clotheslined by Chennedy Carter? Where was Aliyah when Johnny Carrington poked Caitlin in the eye and the ref swallowed the whistle? Where was Aliyah when the entire league was piling on Caitlin for being too popular, too white, too hyped, too everything? She was silent, completely silent. She did not defend her teammate. She did not call out the double standard. She did not use her platform to say, this is unacceptable. But now that it is time to talk about MVP credentials, Aliyah has plenty to say. And all of it is about Kelsey Mitchell. Let me be entirely clear with you. I am starting to question where Aliyah Boston actually stands in all of this because the selective outrage is deafening. She will speak up for Kelsey. She will speak up for Stephanie White. But she would not speak up for Caitlin when Caitlin needed her most. And that is not teammate behavior. That is politics. That is someone protecting their own relationships inside the organization at the expense of the player who is carrying the franchise. And if you think I am reading too much into this, just wait. Because we are about to show you exactly what Stephanie White did last season, and you are going to see the double standard with your own eyes. Last year, Stephanie White was all over the Kelsey Mitchell MVP campaign. She wore the shirt. She talked about it in press conferences. She made it a public priority. The entire coaching staff bought in. The entire roster bought in. It was a unified organizational message. Kelsey Mitchell is our MVP candidate, and we are going to make sure the voters know it. And you know what? I respect that. That is what you are supposed to do when you have a player putting up MVP caliber numbers. You rally the infrastructure, you control the narrative, you make it impossible for the media to ignore your case. But this year, when Caitlin Clark is sitting at number 2 in the MVP odds, leading the league in points created, doubling the television ratings, and putting the Fever back on the national map for the first time in a decade, silence. Absolute deafening. Calculated silence from Stephanie White. Where are the Caitlin Clark MVP shirts, Stephanie? Where is the press conference where you lay out her statistical case and dare the voters to ignore it? Where is the organizational messaging that says, we have the MVP on our roster and we are going to make sure everyone knows it? It does not exist. And the reason it does not exist is because Stephanie White has already made her choice. She chose Kelsey Mitchell last year. And based on everything we are seeing this year, she is choosing Kelsey Mitchell again. Even though the numbers do not support it. Even though the national narrative does not support it. Even though Caitlin is the reason Stephanie White still has a job. I want to see the same energy, Stephanie. I want to see you in a Caitlin Clark MVP shirt the same way you wore a Kelsey Mitchell MVP shirt last season. I want to see the entire team in Caitlin Clark MVP shirts during warm-ups. I want to see the Fever front office put the same institutional weight behind Caitlin that they put behind Kelsey. And if they do not do it, if we get to the end of this season and the Fever have not publicly campaigned for Caitlin Clark's MVP case, then we will know exactly what this organization actually values. And it is not winning. It is not ratings. It is not building around generational talent. It is internal politics, veteran favoritism, and protecting the old guard at the expense of the future. Let me show you the receipts because I want you to see this with your own eyes. Last season, Stephanie White was photographed wearing a Kelsey Mitchell MVP shirt. The whole team wore them. It was a coordinated campaign. And it worked. Kelsey got serious MVP consideration even though the Fever missed the playoffs. That is the power of organizational support. That is what happens when a franchise decides to go all in on a player's narrative. But this year, with a better player, with a stronger case, with infinitely more national attention, the Fever are doing nothing. And that silence is not an accident. That silence is a choice. It is a choice that tells Caitlin Clark exactly how much this organization actually values her. It is a choice that tells the rest of the league that the Fever are more interested in internal harmony than in winning MVP votes. And it is a choice that is going to cost them when the ballots get counted. Now here is what makes this even more insane. We are not talking about some marginal MVP case that requires a leap of faith. We are talking about a player who is statistically elite in every meaningful category. Caitlin Clark is not just first in points created per game. She is first by a margin. She is not just top 5 in assists. She is first. She is not just a good scorer. She is third in the league in points per game as a rookie on a team that was projected to win 15 games. She is doing this while being face-guarded on every possession, while absorbing contact that would get flagrant fouls called in any other era, while carrying an offensive load that would break most veterans, and the advanced metrics back it up. Her usage rate is off the charts. Her assist-to-turnover ratio is elite for a high-usage guard. Her on-off splits show that the Fever are a completely different team when she sits. This is not a narrative MVP case. This is a mathematical MVP case. And yet the people who are supposed to be amplifying that case, her head coach, her starting center, her front office, are either silent or actively promoting someone else. That is not oversight. That is not an accident. That is a deliberate decision to withhold institutional support from the player who has done more for this franchise in 6 months than anyone has done in 6 years. And I have been telling you this for weeks now. I made a video 3 weeks ago breaking down the internal dynamics on this Fever roster. And I told you then that there was tension between the Caitlin Clark camp and the veteran leadership. I told you that Kelsey Mitchell was being positioned as the face of the franchise by people inside the organization who resented Caitlin's instant stardom. And now we have the proof. Now we have Aliyah Boston on camera saying the quiet part out loud. Now we have Stephanie White's silence speaking louder than any shirt ever could. So let me stake my 5 predictions right now, because I want every single person watching this video to save this timestamp and come back in 4 weeks to see if I was right. Prediction number 1. If Stephanie White does not publicly endorse Caitlin Clark's MVP campaign by the end of this month, Caitlin's camp is going to start quietly signaling to front offices around the league that she is open to a trade. I am not saying she demands out tomorrow. I am saying the groundwork gets laid. Because if your own coach will not go to bat for you when you are putting up MVP numbers, why would you commit your prime years to that organization? Mark that. Prediction number 2. Caitlin Clark is going to finish top 3 in MVP voting no matter what the Fever do because the national media and the stats community are not blind. They see the numbers, they see the ratings, they see the impact. But she's going to lose votes she should have won because her own franchise did not build the narrative infrastructure around her candidacy. And when the final tally comes out and Aliyah Wilson wins by a margin that could have been erased with institutional support, I want everyone to remember that Stephanie White and Aliyah Boston chose silence. Prediction number 3. Kelsey Mitchell is going to get extension talks this offseason. And the Fever front office is going to prioritize keeping her over building around Caitlin long-term. Why? Because Kelsey is the veteran. Kelsey has relationships with the coaching staff. Kelsey does not threaten the existing power structure. And organizations choose comfort over greatness every single time. Watch what happens when contract negotiations start. If the Fever offer Kelsey a max extension and lowball Caitlyn on her second contract, you will know exactly what their priorities are. Prediction number 4. The mainstream sports media is going to run a story in the next 2 weeks about tension in the Fever locker room, and they are going to frame it as Caitlyn being difficult or Caitlyn's fans being toxic. They are not going to talk about Stephanie White's favoritism. They are not going to talk about Aliyah's selective loyalty. They are going to make Caitlyn the problem. Because that is what the establishment does when a generational talent exposes their hypocrisy. Save this clip. When that story drops, come back and tell me I was wrong. Prediction number 5. The Fever are going to finish this season as a playoff team. Caitlyn is going to be the reason they get there, and Stephanie White is going to take credit for the turnaround without ever acknowledging that she failed to support her best player's MVP case. And the cycle will continue. The old guard will protect the old guard. The veteran favoritism will persist. And Caitlin Clark will be left to wonder whether this franchise actually wants to win or just wants to manage her stardom without giving her the institutional power she has earned. Here is what this all comes down to, and I need you to hear me on this. Caitlin Clark is not asking for special treatment. She is not demanding that the franchise ignore Kelsey Mitchell's contributions. She is not throwing tantrums in the locker room or leaking stories to the press. She is doing her job. She is showing up every single night, putting up MVP caliber numbers, carrying a franchise that was irrelevant 6 months ago, and doing it all while absorbing more physical abuse and media scrutiny than any rookie in WNBA history. All she is asking for, all any MVP candidate should expect, is that her own organization publicly supports her case, that her head coach wears her shirt, that her teammates hype her up in interviews, that the front office uses every lever at their disposal to make sure the voters see what everyone else sees. And the Indiana Fever are refusing to do it. They did it for Kelsey Mitchell last year when the team missed the playoffs. But they will not do it for Caitlin Clark this year when she is dragging them into the postseason. And that double standard is going to define this franchise for the next decade because Caitlin is going to remember. She's going to remember who had her back when it mattered. She's going to remember who stayed silent when she needed voices. And when her contract situation comes up, when other teams start making pitches, when she has the leverage to choose her own destination, the Fever are going to realize that loyalty is a two-way street. You cannot ask a player to bleed for your franchise and then refuse to bleed for her when she needs you most. So here is what I want from every single person watching this video. Drop your most honest take in the comments. Is Caitlin Clark the MVP of this league right now, or is A'ja Wilson's resume still stronger? Pick a side, defend it, use the stats, use the context, use the eye test. I want to see real arguments, not just hot takes. And while you are down there, save this comment. Caitlin Clark will finish top 3 in MVP voting. The Fever will make the playoffs, and Stephanie White will not publicly campaign for Caitlin's MVP case before the season ends. If I am right by the first week of the playoffs, come back and tell me. If I am wrong, roast me. I will own it. And tag the friend who keeps telling you that Caitlin is overrated, that the media hype is fake, that she is just a product of marketing. Make them watch this video. Make them look at the 2.6 million viewers. Make them look at the 40.2 points created per game. Make them explain why her own teammates will not say her name when the MVP conversation comes up. I want to see them try. And here is what is coming next. Tomorrow we are breaking down the Fever's playoff matchup scenarios and what Caitlin needs to do in the postseason to silence every single doubter who says she cannot win when it matters. If you are not subscribed, you are going to miss it. Hit the bell, because this story is just getting started and the next chapter is going to be the one that defines Caitlin Clark's legacy in this league. This is WNBA Flash. We will see you in the next video.